Okay, so we figured out the ghosts in the machine. Ghosts in the machine have to do with the fact that if you're only going to stream to YouTube, you can stream at a 10K bitrate. But if you try to go live on Twitch with a 10K bitrate, it says no, we're not going to show it. That is one of the major things that I've been talking about over the recent years with streaming, and why I don't understand why Twitch is so intimidated by YouTube. And if Twitch doesn't get over that intimidation of YouTube, they're going to actually end up losing the war. They're gonna lose the streaming war, and I don't know why. I don't know why they're afraid of this. There are going to be a couple of ghosts in the machine. One of which I just realized is that I don't have the alerts on Twitch. So I'm going to have to fix that. This is all a learning process. Alerts for Twitch. Because I'm simultaneously on YouTube and Twitch. It's a little interesting. The alerts will actually work for YouTube. Bump this down just a little bit further. All right, so topic of the day, and there's only a couple of us, but it's going to be a VOD. Topic of the day is fair and equal. It always amazes me throughout my entire life. You'll hear people say that's not fair when it's perfectly fair. It's absolutely perfectly fair. For example, I ask people all the time, what's your definition of fair? and what's your definition of equal? And quite often, that people can't articulate that. So it's amazing, and it starts with parenting. But having been a teacher, you're trying to teach kids, trying to teach kids, what words mean. Switch to YouTube so I could select video quality. Yeah, that is not even being affiliate over on Twitch. That is a problem. No transcoding bar. So it is what it is. Fair, or it's like I said, people, they don't know how to articulate what they call fair and what they call equal. And in my opinion, and I had a professor, her name was Dr. Margaret Carroll. She has written, well, at the time I had her as a student, she had written 6 books on education. One of her books is called What I Learned in School Today. And she talks about fair and equal from an educator standpoint. Fair is everyone gets what they deserve. Equal is everyone gets the identical thing. Now, one of the big things when I was a teacher and figuring out what that meant, I was always confused because I thought kids should be treated equally. And I was a young man. I was like 19, 20 years old in my graduate program. And I said to Dr. Carroll, I thought all the kids should be treated the same. And she said, okay, well, let me ask you something. And it was, she said to me, she's like, you read at an extraordinary level. And I said, yeah, I read pretty quickly. She said, when I give you additional reading to do for the class, am I punishing you or am I enhancing your education? And I didn't really have an answer. I remember just sitting on the table, and it was after class, because I stayed a lot after class to ask questions. And I said, well, you don't give that same reading to all the other students. And she said, yeah, because all the other students can't keep up with the reading for the class. But you're done with the reading for the class in like a quarter of the time. So I give you other things to challenge you. And that's why I'll say to you, hey, Jay and I were talking about an article. Jay, what did you think about this article? And it was kind of like an opportunity to, talk about it. But it was also an opportunity to get something out of the education system. Sparky says, I love when the military banned all flags, not country, state, city, militia, organization, or POW. Totally equal. And so many were heard about that. I agree. The military bans all flags, but then you can't fly the POW MIA flag because it's a flag and it's banned. That was a equal banning, but not a fair banning. To stay with the idea of education for a second, though, one thing that Dr. Carroll and I talked about was the workload you give students. You take your classroom and divide it in half. You put the top 50% of kids on this side. You put the bottom 50% of kids on this side, and you give them a worksheet. But you give the kids on this side of the classroom numbers 1 to 30. You give the kids on this side of the classroom numbers 1 to 15. The slower kids only have to do the first 15 questions. The faster kids have to do all 30. Is that fair? Yes, it is. Is it equal? No, it's not. But is it the right decision? Absolutely. Are you treating all the kids the same? No, you're not treating all the kids the same. Why aren't you treating all the kids the same? Because they didn't start the same. You walked into the classroom at the beginning of the day. You are already smarter than 50% of the kids. The amount of time it's going to take you to do the 30 questions on the worksheet is the same amount of time, the equal amount of time it's going to take those other kids to do the first 15. And so that was 23 years ago now. And that has stuck with me my entire life. Thinking about fair and equal. Everyone screams that they want equal, but fair is sometimes better. It's sometimes better to be treated fairly than it is to be treated equally. Give you an example of that. I wrote down some examples. You want to be treated equally. So when you go to the DMV, you want to have to take the written test, take the eye test, and take the road test every 4 years, right? And people are like, no, that's not what I want. I said, well, why not? And they said, well, because why should I have to take the road test if I've gone 4 years and I don't have any accidents and I don't have any tickets? I said, so, you want to be treated equally when it benefits you to be treated equally, but you want to be treated fairly when it benefits you to be treated fairly. I think that's okay as long as you're not a hypocrite and you say that. Because when you try to fit them into molds, some will go over the edges and some will fall short. Yes, absolutely. When you try to fit everybody into the one-size-fits-all equality, it doesn't always work. When you fit people into the one-size-fits-all fairness, it tends to work. You go to the hospital. Do you want to be treated fairly at the hospital? Or do you want to be treated equally at the hospital? And I say that to people and they're like, I want to be treated equally. Okay, so you get to the hospital with a gunshot wound to the chest, but you want to wait behind me in line because I'm there because I have a cold or I have a non-life-threatening reaction. And they say, no, I should get to be treated because I have a chest wound and you have a minor ailment. Well, okay, then you want to be treated fairly. You don't want to be treated equally because fairness says you show up at the ER and you have a sucking chest wound from a gunshot, they treat you next or they treat you right now. But equality says you get a ticket and you wait in line. I've run into this one specifically a lot of times. The little one has a breathing problem for some unknown reason. It could be an idle Tuesday for no reason. The little one will stop breathing. She'll stop processing oxygen and she'll get cyanosis around the mouth. Well, that's when speed limits don't apply, right? We get the little one to the hospital. We run in with her. She's getting a little big to pick up now, but she's my kid. I still do it. I run in, I say, I have a child I usually just say I have a child in breathing arrest, and that gets everybody coming. Get a mask on her, get a cannula in her, and there is no rhyme or reason. I definitely wouldn't want to show up to the hospital with my kid whose lips are blue and get a ticket and wait in line behind the kid who has a splinter. And this ties in because I've heard this discussion on and on and on about fairness and equality with money. And people say, how much is too much money? People want to cap wealth in the name of financial equality. But is that fair? And we've tried that before. We've tried to cap wealth in the United States before. In the 80s, there was a tax bracket above our highest tax bracket that was ridiculous. And what the rich people do? They stopped generating wealth. They just stopped generating wealth above a certain threshold. They just didn't do it because it wasn't worth their time, their effort, their energy, their resources. I think the big talking point for the day in fair and equal is you don't want one or the other. You want things to be appropriate for the situation you're in. Is this a situation where we should have fairness, or is this a situation where we should have equality? And I'll bring this over to like the movie theater I go to. Movie theater I go to, you buy your seat. The seat itself is booked. I like that idea. I elected to buy my ticket a week in advance. I elected to choose the seat I wanted, so it is fair when I get to the movie theater that I know where I'm sitting. If I want an assigned seat on an airplane, I go to United or I go to Delta, because when I buy my ticket, I'm ticketed in B-17. I'm ticketed in A1. But if I want a better deal, I fly Southwest. But I know that when the tickets go in for when the 24-hour mark comes up, I have to get on there as quickly as possible and get my boarding pass, because the closer I am, or the sooner I am at signing up, the better the boarding pass time I get. One is fair, one is equal. And neither is better. It's all about the situation you're in. I did see, I did see somebody brought up yesterday, I think it was Sparky brought up to me, what do I think about President Biden? And should President Biden get involved with the railroad strike? Should President Biden not get involved with the railroad strike? And again, that becomes a matter of fair and equal. Is it fair that certain industries are considered critical to the infrastructure of the country, so the president can step in to get involved? It's Congress, it's not the president. It's actually both. The president can step in and get involved. The Congress can step in and get involved. The president can get involved. The president can issue an executive order that the president can pass an executive order that says you will go back to work. He's authorized to do that with the railroads, and he's authorized to do that with the air traffic controllers. Not the airlines themselves, but he can get involved with the air traffic controllers, because there's a lot of things the president can do. There's a lot he could say. Well, if you're not going to get back to work, then you're not going to have any work when you want to go back, because you're not going to use the nationalized rail lines. If you don't go back to work, if your company doesn't start moving product again, then you're going to get less than favorable deal conditions. There's a lot of things they can do. The problem is should Congress be getting involved? Should Congress be getting involved with this? Biden signs bill averting rail strike despite lack of paid sick days. Biden signs a bill avoiding a rail strike. President Biden on Friday morning signed a measure that will impose a labor agreement for rail workers that his administration brokered in September, averting a nationwide disruption of rail service. The bill I'm about to sign ends a difficult rail dispute and helps our nation avoid what, without a doubt, could have been an economic catastrophe at a very bad time in the calendar. The bill passed the Senate Thursday with bipartisan support, 80-15, with GOP Senator Rand Paul voting present. The measure passed the House earlier this week after the president urged Congress to intervene. An amendment that would have added 7 days of paid sick leave to the rail contract failed in a 52-43 vote. The Senate also voted down a Republican amendment for a 60-day cooling off period for union and rail negotiations. President Biden asked Congress to intervene after 4 of the 12 rail unions rejected the agreement between rail workers and operators. The Biden administration has been urging swift action as workers threaten to strike if they fail to reach a labor agreement by December 9th. While some lawmakers, Democrats who are particularly pro-labor, have expressed hesitation about intervening, congressional leaders agreed on the need to avoid a rail strike that could deal a blow to the economy. The thing here is, you cannot start having your legislative branch and your executive branch interfering in the economy when you have a laissez-faire economy. At the same time, there is a solution to that people aren't going to like. And the solution to that is nationalization of these sort of industries. As you know, President Reagan dealt with the air traffic controller strike by telling the air traffic controllers return to work or I will just send in the Air Force. And the Air Force air traffic controllers will take over all the air traffic control and will continue to operate that way until you decide that you want to be reasonable. You can have ongoing labor discussions without shutting down the country. It would be the same thing. The military doesn't have a lot of railroad operators, but the military has a handful of them because the military has a handful of rail lines. the military could go in and keep the trains moving. The military could go in and keep distribution going. You just don't want to have to do that. So, current world capitalistic way of earning money is fair or equal, or is it too general to say? It's there. You can't talk about the world capitalistic way because each country has their own things. China doesn't have capitalism; they have communism. Russia doesn't have laissez-faire capitalism; they have a hybridization between socialism, communism, and capitalism. And this is the big thing: is one of them right and is one of them wrong? No, I believe having the government in charge of certain things is good until you have a corrupt government. To be fair, let's say the United States. The United States is a completely fair way of our economic system in the United States is absolutely completely fair. To keep it in the realm of fair and equal. The way we make money in the United States is absolutely fair. It works like this. Time equals money. Money equals freedom. Freedom equals time. That's how it works. See, the problem is when we talk about fair and equal, I hear people argue all the time. They start their discussion, it's not fair he makes more money than me. It's not fair that women make less money on average than men. Okay. But when we really start to peel back the onion on that one, and we really start to look at it, we really start to think about it, what women don't want to hear is that the system is equal. But they want to have a certain set of facts, and they don't want to take those certain set of facts off. For example, the managing partner example that I give is you have a man and a woman. They both graduated law school in 2000. I'm gonna use 2000 because it makes for a nice round number. Man and woman both graduate from law school in the year 2000. Both start at the same. They both come from the same. They both come from the same law school. They're both in the top of their class. We're going to just say they're both in the top 10% of their class. And they go to the same law firm. So now 22 years later, right? 22 years later, the male is a full partner at the law firm, and the female is either a managing partner, so not a full partner, a junior partner, or a senior associate. And people say, that's not fair. They say, that is not fair because different channel, Frost. They say that's not fair because they both graduated from law school in the same year. They were both in the top 10% of their class. They both started at the law firm in the same year. And yet, the male is already a full partner and the female is a managing partner or a lesser position. Except the woman has taken 6 years off of her career in total. The woman has gone and she has 3 times in her career, she has gone off and she has raised children. That was a choice. I hate to say this, but that was a choice. So now you're not comparing a lawyer with 22 years of experience against a lawyer with 22 years of experience. It's not what you're doing anymore. You're comparing a lawyer with 22 years of experience to a lawyer with 16 years of experience. And now it is fair because the male who's worked 22 consecutive years, never taken time off, is a senior partner. And a lawyer with 16 years of experience is a managing partner, a managing director, a junior partner, a senior associate. See what I'm saying? People are always so quick to look at like the end result, but they don't want to look at the path of how we got there. Anybody that's been in certain workplaces, they know that there is multiple different work hours. Some of you like working 410s. Some people like working 410s, but they like doing the 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 2 off mentality. Some people like working first 40. Some people like working 312s and a 4, right? Some people like working whatever it takes to get their 40 hours. Some people like working 13 and a half hours, 3 days a week, and then they have 4 days off. Some people like 4-3-3-4 Panama. It all depends. There's no one right answer. But you can't turn around and say, it's not fair. It's not fair that Jay gets to work first 40 and I don't. Well, why do I get first 40? Have I been there longer than you? Do I have a skill set you don't have? Do I do things you don't do? Teachers are a great example of this. Some people think it's unfair that teachers get 2.5, 3 months vacation a year. Okay? I want to remind you, teachers may get 2.5, 3 months vacation a year, but they don't get paid for the vacation. And then people automatically jump in and they say, well, they get checks over the summer. You're right, because they take their paycheck and instead of dividing their paycheck to be distributed in 9 months of the year, they take their paycheck and they get it distributed across all 12 months. They're still making $40,000 a year, $42,000 a year. They've just decided to allot it out differently. Now, when I was a teacher, I was a Catholic school teacher. We don't make anything. Catholic school teachers make next to nothing. It's a good way to get a job out of college. It's a good way to get experience. But you generally have to take your check across 9 months, and then you get a job in the summer. You work retail, you tutor, you work at these tutoring places, and a lot of times Catholic school teachers work at those tutoring places 2 to 3 days a week, like 2 days after school and like a half day on Saturday. It is what it is, but the teachers I know got the option of pay while working or held pay to get payments over the summer. Yeah, that's the thing, that they do get that. And what people don't recognize is that's a thing. So they look at it from outside and they say, oh, well, that's not fair. But people are always quick to pull the trigger on that's not fair. Well, what's not fair about it? You know what I'm saying? And then it goes back to the top question. I like to stop people when they say that's not fair. Okay, what's not fair about it? What's not fair about it? Well, it's not equal. Okay, so it's not equal. It has nothing to do with not being fair. Fast food workers, they want a living wage. And on this YouTube channel, for those of you on the Twitch, you'll have to come over to the YouTube channel if you want to find the videos that I do. One of the things I talk about is taxing people into poverty. The McDonald's workers, the Burger King workers, they're all asking for $15 an hour. And some of them are getting it. In some places, they're getting it. But they're saying that's still not a living wage. You're right, it's not a living wage. Because, as I've said, and people are, I'm not trying to be mean, but people are ignorant of how the economy works. Giving you $15 an hour doesn't help you. It doesn't help you get to where you want to get. U.S. taxes on $31,200 a year. At $31,200 a year, right? You are gonna walk home with $26,000, which isn't bad. But instead of giving you $31,000, and that's not including what you have to pay to your state. I always remind people that each state has its own breakout. If you make $31,000, right, you're gonna walk home with $26,000. Well, what if we did this a little? What if we did this a little mo better? What if instead of giving you $31,000 and taking $5,000 away of that, what if we just told you outright you're gonna get $26,000? And since we call the minimum cost of living $31,000, we're going to throw you $5,000 more. that would help the businesses, because the businesses wouldn't, like the small businesses are the ones that are closing because they can't afford to pay people $15 an hour. How can you expect ma and pa that have had a family business for the last 30 years that they inherited from their parents, who inherited from their parents? How can you expect them to pay a worker more than what they're taking home on their draw? And the answer is you can't. But nobody wants to think that way. I love Congress people who say, we have absolutely got to make things fair. Okay, well, fair is everyone getting what they deserve. Why doesn't Congress make it fair? If Congress is willing to step in and pass a bill in order to stop a railroad strike, why doesn't somebody in Congress watch my taxing people into poverty video and understand that until you're making $31,200 a year, you shouldn't be paying any taxes? Any sales tax, because sales tax is a use tax. You mean the negative tax idea? No, it's not a negative tax idea. What it is that if you tell me that 31,000, what is it? 2080 times 15. If you tell me 31,200 a year is the threshold of what a living wage is, then I shouldn't be paying any taxes, federal or state, Medicare or Social Security, until I've made 31,200. Now, sales tax is a different thing because sales tax has to be equal. Sales tax becomes problematic because you want to have a usage tax. Everybody needs to pay tax on gasoline, for example. I know it hurts. I know it hurts the bottom line, but it's how do you distinguish between the person making six figures and the person making 31,000 a year when they go to the pump to buy gasoline? And I've heard people say stuff like, well, they could have a card. Are you really gonna try to create some sort of nationalized system that all the gas station pumps in the country all operate on, that I can put in a card that says I'm the working poor, so I don't pay tax on gasoline? That's never going to work. An idea has to be feasible, has to be practical, it has to be realistic, it has to be able to be implemented. So tax on gasoline is just going to always be universal. Fair is closing all the loopholes for generational wealth tax evasion. Yes, I know it's not evasion in an illegal sense, but they did it, evade paying the taxes. No, I 100% disagree with you. Why do I have to pay a tax on generational wealth if I've already paid tax on that wealth? Because I agree closing loopholes in the tax system, absolutely. But I'm tired of people attacking generational wealth, because people always say we need to go after generational wealth. I'm the youngest son of an Irish immigrant, and in 43 years of my lifetime, I've accumulated enough wealth that I have generational wealth to pass on to my children. I've already paid my fair share of taxes throughout my entire life, because I've chosen to save, I've chosen to invest, I've chosen to learn about economics. Like yesterday, you guys saw I had to interrupt my gaming channel stream by about 15 minutes because I want to be able to, I'm looking at a house here in about 2 hours, and I want to be able to walk in there, and if I want the house, I want to be able to say, I'm taking the house. If you already paid, I get that, but people that move things so they don't pay capital gains tax, meaning the tax didn't get paid already. Right, so stop attacking the generational wealth and go back to fixing it so people have to pay their capital gains tax. Make it so that you have to pay your capital gains tax, which, by the way, there's a lot of people on the bottom screaming the people on the top didn't pay their taxes. The people on the top are paying all the taxes that they are obligated to pay. You don't have to be at the top to avoid paying taxes. Tax avoidance is legal. Tax evasion is illegal. You don't have to be on the top to understand the tax code. That's my problem with the poor. The poor look at the rich and they say, you need to do your fair share. Your fair share. And the people at the top are saying, we do pay our fair share. I know that people are going to try to hit me with the painting example of how I get somebody to take, I get somebody to take a little paint, a little color, right? I get them to doodle on an image, right? I get them to do like Bob Ross it up, put a happy little tree here, right? And then do a little river, and I get people, they're like, oh, oops, the blur isn't going to allow that. Where are you, blur? So I get people are going to be like, oh, you have your bullshit little painting and you're going to appraise it at $100 million. And then people always know about half of that example. They're like, you get somebody to make a painting, you get it appraised at $100 million, you donate it to a museum, and then you get a tax write-off for $100 million. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Except the problem is you're missing the step. There has to be in order for you to have a tax write-off for the donation of $100 million, yes, it has to have been appraised at $100 million, but at some point, $100 million must have changed hands. And that's the piece that the ignorant, uninformed, uneducated, listening to one person's TikTok and they get all riled up. That's the piece that they're missing. Sure, I can appraise something at whatever I want. I can do a kickback to an appraiser and get something appraised at whatever I want. That's great. My house, if you ask one bank what my house is valued at, one of my auto monitoring places says my house is valued at 208. Another one of the places that auto monitors my property says my property is worth 238. So what's my house worth? Right now, my house is worth, technically, my house is, and I don't have time to do the compounding interest, but my house is worth $175,000, and if you compound 3.23% growth over 6 years, that's what my house is actually worth. So it doesn't get up to either of those numbers, because until I make a transaction on the house, I haven't gained that money. But people are always looking at this example. Like the way Pentagon shifted things to a nonprofits, but one of those nonprofits, the ones that got the voting shares, is completely run and governed by a family. They avoided $1.25 billion in taxes. Sure. And what the piece to that is I would have to look into all of that, and I would have to find out how they're avoiding, right? I'd have to look at how they're avoiding having a personal holding company. Okay, let me see here. If I give $3 billion to you, I'd owe $1.2 billion in gift tax. They figured out a way to give $3 billion away, having it not go to a traditional charity, and instead of paying $1.2 billion in gift tax, they're paying $17 million in tax. Let me stop you there. Once again, this is not a problem with generational wealth, and we need to stop attacking generational wealth. Generational wealth is the American dream. Just looking quickly at this is a way that they were allowed to move money around, right? They were allowed to move money around using loopholes. We don't need to attack generational wealth. We need to fix all the other problems. We need to fix all, like, you shouldn't be able to do that. And there are laws on the books that stop you from being able to do that. For example, if you're a not-for-profit or a non-profit, I think not-for-profits should go away. I think not-for-profits should absolutely go away, because they're not being used for what they're supposed to be used for. If you want to be a not-for-profit, you should have to be a 503c, a charitable organization, and then you should have to, and the U.S. government should pass legislation that says if you want to qualify for being a charitable organization, 80% of what you bring in or more must go to the charities. I mean, there's a whole bunch of crooked charitable organizations. You guys know that one of the things I did, I had about an 8-month lapse. The first 8-month lapse I had in streaming was because I was trying to figure out how to run the Paradox Gaming Network in such a way as it had no pass-through income to me. And that was not an easy thing to do. One of the things that the legal team came up with is that we would run it as a charitable organization. And I said, well, that doesn't allow me to do what I want to do. And they said, well, sure it does. All you have to do is give 10% of your income a year to charity, and then you're covered. I said, well, what about the fact that later on down the road, when I'm done streaming, if my kids don't become, if my kid doesn't become a streamer, the music, the art, the assets, and all that, what happens with that? They say you just transfer it to a different company. I was like, how is that legal? They said, because it's legal. You would set up another organization that would buy each track, the gold master of each track, for $1. So say you have 1,500 songs on your label and 500 pieces of artwork. You leave $2,000 to your kids. They buy all of those assets from the charitable organization for $2,000. The charitable organization has to give $200 of that to charity, and then it pays $1,800 back out to you for sitting on the board of directors. I was like, that can't be legal. They're like, well, yeah, it is. That's the problem. If you're sitting on a board of directors for a charitable organization, 95% of the money or 90% of the money shouldn't be allowed to be paid out to the board of directors in salary, right? It should be a matter of that money has to go to the charity organizations. So I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Do we need to close loopholes in the tax code? Sure, absolutely. There are so many loopholes in the tax code that I'm sorry, but H&R Block and all those other places, they are not accountants. They are tax preparation experts. They do not care about fixing the problem or helping you fix the problem or teaching you how to fix the problem. They are simply there to say, what did you do this year? Here's how we put that on the form. If you go to an accountant and you pay an accountant some money and you pay a lawyer some money, you can set up methods to not pay taxes. That's what's wrong. That's what's nonsense about it. You want to fix fair and equal? Let's fix fair and equal. Number one, let's have a flat rate tax. Period. Let's have a flat rate tax. Number two, right? Let's have a graduated usage tax that starts at 0% for groceries, for basic necessities, but goes up to 12% for top end things. Restaurants are either coded luxury or necessity, and then the tax rate, a steakhouse, luxury. McDonald's, I don't want to put McDonald's as a necessity. Unfortunately, they are a staple crop of American nutrition, right? You want to buy clothes, well, the store has to have a basic necessities or luxury tagging. Walmart, basic necessity. Target, basic necessity. Ariel Pastel and Forever 21 and Abercrombie and Fitch, all the high-end places, those are luxury places. You make the tax higher. You buy a car, if a car is up to if a car is up to $29,000, it's a basic necessity car. If it's up to $59,000, it's a mid-range car, unless it's a truck and it has a work exemption, then it's a basic necessity truck. After $59,000, explain to me, for the most part, why an individual is buying a vehicle above $60,000 as a necessity vehicle. No, put a luxury tax on it. Boats, luxury tax. What about my fishing boat? Luxury tax. Having enough time to go fishing means time is money, money is freedom, freedom is time, money is freedom. If you have enough time to be going fishing, you have enough time to pay tax on a boat. Airplane, you have a private airplane, tax the shit out of it. And then I want to address the whole fair and equal about the environment. If you're taking 10-minute plane rides, luxury tax. Here's your tax. Here's your processing fee. Here's your landing fee. Your landing fee is this. Wow, this is a lot. Yeah, because your flight time was less than 30 minutes. You're dead. And if Faye was here, Faye would say, well, there's ways around that too. They'll just circle or loiter. Okay, if your point-to-point direct travel is less than 30 minutes, you pay the luxury tax. So I'm definitely not against the rich being told you have to pay more. But I'm against saying generational wealth. Because then again, generational wealth is something that inheritance tax is kind of bullshit, right? And the way the inheritance tax is written is bullshit. The inheritance tax should be put together like a Roth IRA. If I've already paid the taxes on it, it should be in a Roth IRA type inheritance. Okay, this money Jay's already paid the tax on, so his family diversifies his IRA. He already paid the tax on it. They get that money free and clear. But his stock investments, he hasn't already paid the taxes on, so they have to treat that as income. Plus, I think inheritance tax is all complete bullshit anyway. Inheritance tax should simply fall in as income for the year. How much did you get? Well, if you're a poor person and you get income, right, there should be a threshold for how much you can inherit. And after that threshold, it just adds to your income. Inheritance is 30% here to my knowledge. I haven't read anything else on it, but it's quite a lot just for dying. Yeah, that's why nothing in your life should be set up on inheritance tax. Sparky brought up inheritance tax. One of the things that you can do with inheritance tax is easy. Everything is survivorship. As my kids get older, their names get added to bank accounts, and then put money in those accounts. You can create a bank account where the primary holder is the primary account holder is the only action initiating holder. The secondary person is an authorized owner of the account, but they can't do anything with it. So what that means is when I die, I get removed from the account, the secondary person moves into the primary slot, and now they can access the money. Now, there are some things with that. You can't put more than $15,000 into, you can't put more than $15,000 a year into that, otherwise you have to pay gift tax. H&R Block, the amount of money used to lobby the government to keep taxes having to be prepared as opposed to the government just sending you a bill. Government knows what you owe typically. No, I agree with you. And see, that's another problem. We would have a flat rate tax and a usage tax by now, except H&R Block and all the cronies and the power block of people. They're the ones that, you know, they're the ones that say we can't have this. See, this, I disagree with you, Sparky. Even the way they do property, you don't pay taxes on the difference from when the property was bought, but when you inherited it. But when sold, it should go from the bought price to the sold date. No, it shouldn't. Why? If I hold my property for 30 years, right? And I'm not required to pay any sort of tax on that. I buy my property in 2000, and I'm not required to pay any taxes. And remember, I am paying taxes on it. I am paying taxes on that because I am paying property tax on it. Each year, assuming I'm in a state that has property taxes, and if the state doesn't have property taxes, that's the state's own fault. But every year when the value of my house goes up, I'm paying taxes, I'm paying property taxes based on the estimated appraised value of my property. I've already paid the taxes on it. I've already paid taxes on the increasing value of my property. Now, if your state doesn't do property tax, that's the state's problem. But the fact that I bought a property for $100,000 and then when I die 30 years later, the property's worth $700,000. If my family wants to keep the asset, they should not owe any taxes on the $600,000. If they choose to sell the property, then sure, maybe we can look at writing a law that makes sense, but I don't think that what Grumpy Old Man said. And by the way, you'll have to look at the chat. There's people on Twitch and there's people on YouTube. You won't see each other in the channels. You kind of have to use the Twitch screen if you're going to talk across to each other. Somebody dying should not trigger a sale or a capital gain. If it's a non-cash asset, the tax forces inheritors to sell the asset to pay the tax. That's the thing. Unless you're going to start telling people you have to pay a capital gain on the property. And again, what's the property worth? As I said, is my property? Yeah, you can use both chats, Frush. You'll see in the chat, there's a YouTube icon if they're speaking from YouTube. There's a Twitch icon if they're speaking from Twitch. The thing is that what's my property worth? One assessing place says my property's worth 208. One place is saying it's 238. Saying you didn't pay the gains tax because you didn't sell it, but whoever inherits it will only pay gains on inheritance to sold, not bought to sold. It's like capital gains. Right. Why should they have to pay from the date that I bought it? They didn't have the 30 years to leverage the debt. They didn't have the 30 years to leverage the value. I think this is one of those where we're attacking rich people, but why should my kids, who are really first generation Americans, right? Why should they have to pay a tax because dad has held property for 30 years and that property gained in value? Why should they have to pay the tax? They didn't own it in 2000. They didn't own it in 2016. Why should they have to go back to where I bought it? Because then I'm going to tell you what's going to happen with that. What's going to happen with that nonsense is you're going to have people that are going to completely screw the real estate market. Because if you tell me my kids have to go back to my purchase price, because I purchased this house for $175, it's worth $238. It'll probably be worth $600,000 by the time I die. If that was going to be the case, then I would sell my kid the house for $1 on a quitclaim deed. But not only now does the government get screwed out of any fair share of the taxes, it also means I've just tanked this entire local real estate market because the MLS is going to reflect a $600,000 house sold for $1. And if I do it as a quick claim, all that's doing is making sure a title company wasn't involved and that there weren't any other liens or whatever. And obviously some people might sell a property on a quick claim that has liens on it, but yeah, that would show up like a repo. It kind of. But what it would show up, it would completely screw all my neighbors. All my neighbors would get screwed because now all of a sudden, when you look at the pricing, because no matter how you sell a house, that data goes into the system. So now what are you going to have? My house was worth $600,000 today, and tomorrow my property's worth $1. What's going to happen to my neighbors? See, we got to make sure that when we say things that we don't create more problems. And then if somebody says, well, you just won't be able to sell your property to your kids for $1, why not? It's my property. Why are you starting to chop off the laissez-faire part of our economics? Why are you chopping off the laissez-faire part of our capitalism by saying I can't do what I want with my property? If I want to sell my kid a car for $1, I can do that. As long as the car's not less than 3 years old. If the car is less than 3 years old, I can still sell the car in my state. I can still sell it for $1. But what I can't do is avoid paying the Kelly Blue Book tax value, which again is the bullshit I've seen done in the name of avoiding taxes. I've seen people transfer the ownership of a vehicle after an accident because they know the value's now zero. It was a vehicle they were planning on getting repaired anyway, But we create this loophole in the system. See, I'm adamantly against punishing the successful. I'm adamantly against punishing the successful. Because punishing the successful is what we did in the 80s, and what did the successful stop doing? The successful stopped generating wealth. And if the successful stop generating wealth, that doesn't hurt the successful. That hurts the people that get, and I'm gonna say it how it is. It hurts the people that get the breadcrumbs. But if you're starving, do you want crumbs or do you want nothing? I think if you're starving, you want to sustain yourself on breadcrumbs until you get into a move forward. They would only be screwed if they sold. And nope, that's not necessarily true. Remember, if you inherit property in excess of the inheritance threshold, you get assigned the tax. So in Frostpaw's situation, he's absolutely correct. If the house is valued at $1 million, and every state is different, every state has their own different inheritance laws and their probate laws, but the value of non-liquid property is factored in. That's why a lot of people later on in life put their kid on the deed to the house, because then right of survivorship. But yeah, it's a complicated problem because you don't just get assessed on your non-liquid assets. Let me look this up real quick. So when you inherit real property, the income tax basis is stepped up to the value of the property at the time of death. If you decide to sell the property, you only pay capital gains tax on any appreciation over your stepped up basis. But the value of the estate factors in. So when you have a state that has no estate tax, let me look up Illinois, because it may have changed. Illinois' estate tax threshold is now $4 million. $4 million. If you had let's say it was 400,000 and not 4 million. Let's just say it was 400,000. My kids would be screwed because my kids would get more than, let's say my wife and I died at the same time. My kids would get more than 400,000 in liquidity, in cash assets, on top of the properties. My kids, and then what happens is you have the value of the property, and then they have to pay tax on that, and they have to pay tax on everything over the threshold. Illinois is now 4 million, and I don't have that many millions. So at this point, my kids will inherit, and it's not going to be, the estate is valued at less than 4 million, so it's not a big deal for my kids. But in other states, it's not 4 million. The estate tax is state by state. Let's look up state with the lowest inheritance threshold. Massachusetts and Oregon are, so everybody's moved up to 1 million now. So yeah, we're good now. I mean, there's not a big deal for the poorest people. The poorest people are covered. So I just don't know why we're going after generational wealth. I don't get why we want to go after generational wealth. I want to go after taxes being paid on a timely fashion. I want to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share, but I don't get where people are caught up on making people pay taxes because they're holding on to property. You paid your taxes. You pay your taxes yearly if you pay your property taxes. You paid your taxes when you bought the house. You paid your closing fee. You paid your real estate transaction fee. You paid the state. You paid the appraiser. You paid the inspector. You paid the repair people. You paid all those people already. You already got gutted when you bought the property. So if I live in the property, now, do I think that there's something to be said about the fact that people that are landlords are being double rewarded because they've bought a bunch of houses and the value of their assets is going up at the same time while they're making money on people? Yes, and I agree with that. I absolutely agree with if it's not your residence, if it's not your residential property, we need to look into it. That's a big one. But again, when we start moving into all the things we need to look at to fix a problem, what's the problem with the real estate market right now? We went from a We went from a buyer's market to a nobody's market, and the sellers are like, well, where's the seller's market? I'm going to look at a house here in a little over an hour. I'm gonna go in, doing some numbers, right? Doing some numbers. The house is on the market for $298,800. Okay. It's estimated, Zillow estimates it at $250,000. I saw that last night and I was like, wow, man, that's like a $48,000 difference. I crunched some numbers. I don't think the house is worth more than $269,000, right? You've been trying to sell a house since mid-October. Yeah, because you caught the back end, you caught the trail end of when things went to shit. You caught the back end of when things absolutely went horrible. Houses were flying off the market in June, July, August, September. It was the first time in years that buyers had a low enough interest rate. See, it went, and when I say it, technically it was a seller's market. Technically it was a seller's market because sellers could demand top dollar and there were low interest rates, but buyers could get the mortgages they needed. What did I get quoted yesterday? Something like 6.5%, but what I'm doing is I would never recommend somebody to do a house transaction the way I'm doing this house transaction. The house transaction that I'm doing because I have the ability to put down 20% liquid, so I don't have PMI, move into the new house, pay the monthly mortgage payments, flip this house, get most of the remaining that I need, and then I'll just pay the difference. I just don't want, I could pay more of the house down. I could diversify investments and have more cash on hand, but then I'm tapped. Then I can't buy new furniture. I'm going to need new furniture. I'm going to need a new kitchen set. I'm going to need a new couch set. I'm going to need some new bookcases. I'm going to, higher quality house needs higher quality furniture. So I don't want to go completely out of liquid resources. But at the same time, I'm not paying almost $300 for that house. You probably would have sold it already if your realtor didn't try to highball. We argued about it, but I gave him a couple of weeks. Nobody even looked at it at that price. Yeah, and this is what Sparky, this is what I'm going to tell you. And this, you may not like this answer, but I'm going to give you a piece of advice. If you started high and you came down, I would take the house off the market for 30 days. I would say to my realtor, you fucked this deal up. Take the house off the market for 30 days, because what's going to happen now is your house on the market is showing on the market for X number of days. I would delist the house in MLS for 30 days. I would put it back up at, I'll give you the exact number. I would put it back up on the market for 3.23% over the Zestimate. That way, when you put it back up, see, what's happened now with your house is people have already looked at your house on that MLS listing number and they've already ignored it. It has come to them, they've seen it, they've ignored it. If you don't delist it, I mean, yeah, there are some people that run their script where price adjustments will repopulate, but I don't. If I eliminate a house, I eliminated the house. If I wasn't going to go look at it for the dollar amount, I generally make a lot of judgments about the seller based on how they initially put their house up. So yeah, in your case, with the way the market is gone and you don't want to be fucking selling a house in December anyway, it's a total pain and people try to lowball. I would just take the house down for 30 days, put it back up right after the first of the year with 3.23% over the Zestimate, and then it'll reflag as a new listing to all those people. And then you're going to get the first of the year buyers, the people that got their Christmas bonuses. That's what I would do. Leaving it on the market and having it October to November, 45 days on the market, people are going to start to think that you're desperate. They're going to give you bullshit offers, even if you do get offers. I take it down for 30 days. Pain in the ass to do, but then tell your realtor. And that's a piece for everybody. Ask your realtor ask your realtor what you think what they think they should list the property at, right? They give you a number. Then you take the Zillow estimate, you take that number, bump it by 3%. So now you've got that number. If these numbers are really far apart, then you need to go back to your realtor and say, okay, justify this number to me because I'm thinking this. I got screwed on a property the other direction. I had a realtor. I knew the market. I wanted to list a house 10,000 more than I did. The realtor wanted to list 10,000 less than we did. And I told the realtor, I said, I'm not listing at that price, period. It's not happening. I said, I'm going to do this price. The house sold in 24 hours. It went under contract, and it basically the contract, the way it was written was, you can do whatever inspections you want, but I'm not doing anything to the house. He justified me by me putting a new flooring and new roof on. I'm going to tell you right now, a new roof, my realtors have already told, new flooring is yes. My realtors have already always told me a new roof, a new furnace, and a new air conditioner are not upsell points because they're mandatory points for the property. You gotta have a decent roof on. You did that for the preservation of the property. Likewise, I had to put a new roof on a property because the number one thing people were it was leaking. Well, then yeah, the roof wasn't for the sale. The roof was for you. The roof was for you as the owner of the building. I ended up having to put an expensive roof on a house. I'm never buying another house with a 30% greater than a 30% pitch. Never doing that again because you have to rent cranes and safety equipment and all this other shit. I ended up having to put a roof on just to get people to look at the house. The first 5 people that looked at the Ohio sale looked at it and they said it needs a roof. And they're like, you put a roof on and let us know. And I was like, ugh, not what I want to do. I'd rather put the roof on. You give me $210 for the house, I'll put a roof on, and then I'll pay for the roof out of the closing, because then technically you're paying for the roof, and I'm just not getting that $20,000. But yeah, it's a pain. It's an absolute pain. But no, fair, equal. Takei says Takei's issue with inheritance tax is that it makes it harder for poor families to become rich over 2 to 3 generations. I'm gonna help you out. It's not inheritance tax that stops poor families from becoming rich. It's once again, it's this one. I'm gonna type on this one this time. It's this one. It's this equation. It should be popping up on there you go. It's time equals money, money equals freedom, freedom equals time. That's the equation. If anybody was looking for the how to get rich equation, that's the equation right there. Time is money. If you're spending your time working for somebody else, you're being compensated for your time, but you're never going to get rich that way. You might get wealthy. You're never going to get stupid rich. If I'm paying you $18 an hour, this is just a fact of life. This is a fact of life, and it's something you need to just understand. If I'm going to say I'm paying you $20 an hour, I want to keep the numbers easy. If I'm paying you $20 an hour, whatever you're doing for me is making me $35 an hour. Because if I'm paying you $20 an hour, that means the people that generate me no wealth, you're paying for them. You're paying for them. You're doing carpentry. I'm just going to say carpentry for me. You're doing carpentry for me. Your labor equals profit. But while my office manager is a key, crucial part of the organization, my office manager can bang out office management work all day, every day. And what does it generate in wealth? Nothing. It's not something generating wealth. If you're a carpenter working for me and I'm paying you 20, you rest assured I'm making 35 an hour on your labor. Is that fair? No, it's not fair. It's not equal either. But it is is it fair in the grand scheme of things? Sure. because your labor is worthless without my company. Without my company, you don't have a job site to apply your labor to. Without my job site, you do not have nails to put into boards. You don't have boards to put together to make the frame of a house. You don't have the plot of land to put the frame of the house on. You don't have the other trades that are going to come in and apply their $20 an hour, and then we get a sales price, and then I'm there with the money, right? I get the sales, right? I get the big fat stack of money, and I say, okay, the carpenter gets $1, the plumber gets $1, the electrician gets $1, I got to pay the office manager $1, I got to give the guy that sold me the materials $5, and oh yeah, unfortunately, I'm the owner, so I walk off with the 20. And all the people are like, well, that's not equal. You're right, it's not equal, but it's fair. Because who put up the capital? I did. Who started the business 23 years ago? I did. Who loses everything if you screw up? I do. Now, if you screw up and I know what you screwed up, I may come back and sue you, but I can only sue you after I've been sued. I'm the one that pays for the office manager. I'm the one that pays for the advertiser. I'm the one that pays for the lawyer, the payroll person, the accountant, the person that the accountant does the tax filing. I'm the one that does the advertising, the marketing, the beat in the street, the shaking of hands, the making of deals. Time equals money. Your time equals money. But I can never afford to give you, I, as the company owner, cannot afford to give you what you're really worth, because then how do I make money? Money equals freedom. Is anybody going to disagree with the idea that money equals freedom? There isn't a situation in the world that you're in that you can't solve with money. Or potentially solve with money. You're in jail. Money buys you a lawyer. You're in jail. Did you have money before you went to jail? No. That's why you're in jail. Did you have money before you went to jail? Yes. Oh, well, you had a lawyer. Freedom equals time. Imagine how much... Sparky's a great example of this. Sparky retired, got a job, revectored and said, fuck this, I don't need a job. Sparky now has the freedom of time. He's not going to work for somebody else. Sparky can now explore all their options. Same thing with me. I'm retired. I can now explore all my options. This is the equation for generating wealth. This is the equation for it. It's unfair and it's unequal, right? It's unfair and it's unequal, but it is what it is. It is what it is. And what we have is a situation where people with time can work on generating even more wealth. I tell you the story about my buddy who's a restaurant owner. Buddy had the restaurant, I don't even know, man, 4 or 5 years. Guy has a restaurant 4 or 5 years. He's at the restaurant all the time. He's always there. Literally, he's always there working. And I said, you're not an owner, you're a manager. We sat down one day. He was having a problem with turnover. He called me in to do a CPI event for him. I started talking, and I said, okay, you need to go somewhere else. You need to not be in the building. And he said, why do I need to not be in the building? I said, because these people need to know that they have the right to talk to me, and I'm not going to tell you what they say. He's like, well, I want to know what they say. I'm like, I will tell you what the overall consensus is. But do not ask me what Billy the server told me. Don't ask me that, because I'm not gonna tell you what Billy said. So I go in, I start talking to people. I say, hey, why are so many people leaving? And they said, well, it has to do with how much money we're making. I said, okay, what do you mean? They said, everywhere in town is starting to bump up a little bit how much we make. I said, so you're leaving for more financial opportunities? And they said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, but then why don't you come to work on time? Why don't you come to work made up? Why aren't your uniforms clean? Like, I worked as a server, and I told him, I said, I worked as a server. The first thing I did every night when I got home is I took my work shirt off, I put it right into the wash with whatever other whites I had, and, you know, put the OxyClean and made sure my shirt stayed sparkly bright white. And a lot of them said, man, I'm so tired after my job. I'm so worn out. People are bad tippers, all these things. So after taking all these facts, all these factors, I went back to my buddy and I said, just pay everybody $15 an hour and do 50-50 split on tips. The house gets all the tips. If you get a cash tip, you got to kick it in. You got to kick it in. You have to kick the tip in. You get paid $15 an hour, and you get a percentage of 50% of the tips. So what happens is you get paid. You get a $20 tip on a table. You kick that into the house. 10 of that goes into the disbursement pool. If you worked 14% of the man hours today, then you get 14% of the tip pool. And when we sat down, we spelled it out for all these servers, all the bus boys, all the food runners. The bartender said, we don't want to be any part of that. We want our tips over here. We said, okay, but now you have all the side work for the bar. They said, what do you mean? I said, if you don't want to be involved in tip sharing, you got to do all your own side work. Bartenders were like, we don't normally do side work. I said, right, but normally things are done differently. So if you don't want to be part of it, you do your own side work. They said, okay. So work it out. What percentage of the tips on alcoholic drinks have to go over? There's a formula. There's a sheet. The computer does it all now. 3 of the servers left. They said, I'm not gonna tip share. Okay. My buddy noticed very quickly after he started paying everybody, you know, there is a huge difference between going to work, right, and knowing you're making $120 that day plus a percentage of tips. There's a huge difference between going to work and knowing that you're making $120 a day plus tips, and knowing you're going to work making $25 that day and you'll make tips. Now, personally, if the restaurant was running, our restaurant was running the way I'd want it, me as a server, I'd want tips, because I would make more than $200-300 a day in tips. But we're talking about an overall what's best for everybody. But we weren't just talking about what was best for everybody. We were talking about what was best for my buddy, who's the owner at the restaurant, working 70-hour weeks. My buddy was really, really apprehensive about paying people $15 an hour. He's like, I'm gonna go broke. You're not gonna go broke. And if even if you do, after 30 days, well, let's do 90 days. After 90 days, we can sit down and we can look at it. So he had a big company meeting, or big restaurant meeting. He told people what the new standards were, the new dress and appearance standards. Because one of the things I noticed, and I talked to the servers about, I was like, you're coming in looking like a $3 server. You're wondering why your tips are low. You look like a $3 server. If you want to make better tips, you need to look like a better server. But if you want more guaranteed money, you got to look like a better server. And remember, you get your fair share cut of this tip pool. I said, so ladies, you got to be presentable. Your nails got to be done. Whatever constitutes done to you. If you chip a nail on the way to work, no big deal. Don't be coming in with trashy nail polish, trashy makeup. Make sure your makeup's done, gentlemen. If you're going to be clean shaven, be clean shaven. No, I forgot to shave. Put a razor blade and a can of shaving cream. Put a can of Barbazol and a dollar razor in your little locker cubby. You forget to shave, go shave. If you're going to grow a goatee or a beard, let the management know that you're going to grow it in, so that they don't bust your chops for being unkempt for those couple of days. But grow it in. Don't be trying to say I'm trying, it doesn't work, blah blah blah. Be on time. If you're not on time, you're late. If you're late, you're not getting tables. There were some growing pains at first. About a year later, my buddy contacts me and he's like, and it's not like we didn't talk for a year, but he just happened in this past March. He said, I have more money in the bank account March over March than I know what to do with. I said, you have more money in your bank account March over March than you know what to do with. He said, yeah. I said, well, give everybody a raise then. What? If you have more money, March over March, March to March, if you have more money than you've ever had liquid in the company's fund, give everybody a raise. Because then they're going to keep working harder for you. Your turnover's down. Keep it down. The thing that he said he loved most was because employees were coming to work on time, he wasn't getting called in. He wasn't coming to be as the owner to be the manager, so the manager could be the assistant manager, so the assistant manager could pick up tables. He said the thing that's best for me is time. Time equals money. So now he's almost done with his second restaurant now. He almost has his second restaurant completed, built, laid out. He learned a lot from the mistakes he made in his first restaurant. The second place isn't like a fine dining place. It's more like a quick go, but it's still table service. It's kind of like a McAllister's in concept. It's good food brought to your table, but you order at a counter and then they bring you the food. So it's a good setup. But he said the nice part is that he's no longer worried about the first restaurant. That's how the rich get rich. You set up something that needs very little of your attention, and it's passive income. It's passive income. You make sure you pay your manager well, you pay your staff well, because at that point, time equals money. How much time am I spending on this? Very little? Okay, well then let's make sure I don't generate problems with high turnover or greedy managers or angry people. Because remember, angry employees mean bad customer service. Bad customer service means angry customers. Angry customers means they stop coming in. And all this comes from paying people a living wage. He was talking to me about how much money the restaurant's making. He said they are doing what every restaurant does, a way to get a lot of money in. Because you guys know you should never buy a gift card to a restaurant unless you're 100% sure you're going to buy it. You're going to use it. I don't buy, even if you buy $50 in gift cards, you get 10 free. Okay, that's great. Do I go to this restaurant every week? Sure. Okay. Then around the holidays, every time I go in, I use the gift card and then I say to them, sell me another $50 worth of gift cards. And they do. And I'm like, you're just giving me $10 because I come in every week. He's doing that. He's like, we have a ton of money. I said, good. Give everybody a raise. He's like, but I just gave him a raise in March. I said, good. Give everybody a raise. Why? Because you have more money than you know what to do with. Your restaurant is making more money than you know what to do with. You have enough money to build out a new building. It's paid for. You're cash paying for your new business. Give everybody a raise. Yeah, I hate when people give me gift cards, even to places I go off and I might forget to take the card or lose it. I hate them so much. Yeah, I agree with you. But no, so this is just an example of a guy who's getting rich, but he never thought about the idea of profit sharing. Because what do we not do in American business, in capitalism? What do we not do? We do not do profit sharing. Profit sharing is an amazing way to keep everybody moving, everybody motivated. For example, Bruce Wayne in The Dark Knight Rises goes to Lucius and he says, why have we stopped paying for the children's orphanage? And Lucius says to him, we've stopped giving money to the orphanage, the Wayne Foundation, because the Wayne Foundation is paid for with the profits from the company, and we don't have any profits. A rising tide raises all ships, absolutely. And that's the thing. A rising tide lifts all boats. And if you're not interested in helping rise the tide, then you're not doing what's best. Because remember, if you raise all the little rowboats of all your little employees, your yacht gets raised up too. This is where, and I know there's a ton of people who love Elon Musk. They love him. They worship at the altar of Elon. I think Elon Musk All right. I think Elon Musk makes really bad decisions. He makes decisions that need to be made, but he executes his methods poorly. I understand that Twitter was hemorrhaging. I understand that Twitter was hemorrhaging $4 million a day. Right? I get it. You got a company that's hemorrhaging $4 million a day. You're literally he has a very valid argument that he was lied to. He was led to believe different things. He was led to believe the company was worth 44 billion. Company wasn't worth 44 billion. But walking in, severing 75% of the company, giving them 90 days of severance because you think that's the right solution. Sure. It's your company now. Do what you want. I would never buy a company and then sever 75% of the company. Some of them, sure. But you gotta be a Maxwellian in your leadership. John Maxwell back there, all the books on my shelf. You gotta develop leadership. Sometimes it's about giving people the opportunity to lead, and then they'll solve your problems for you. But at the same time, right? When you walk into a place of business and you ask people, well, what do you do here? And they don't have an answer for you. You ask me there was never a time in my life that somebody could walk up to me and say, what do you, what do you do here? Like commanding officers or generals that were visiting the bases would say, what do you do here? What's your job? I never gave him a job title because I can turn around and be like, I'm the flight commander of deployment and distribution. But the fact that I'm standing outside my office and it says Lieutenant Jahlon, flight commander, deployment and distribution. I mean, I'm not doubting the general's ability to read a nameplate and then say, what do you do around here? Oh, I supervise all the deployment and distribution. I get all the peoples and parcels to all the right places. I also have contingency operations under me. We do all of the deployment functions, both inbound and outbound. We're responsible for 3,000 deploying active duty personnel, as well as we have an ammo dump on the far side of the base that we're responsible for the overflow from Hill. When you say that to a general, the general's like, well, hot damn, son, you're one of the most important people on this base because you're able to actually tell me what it is you do around here. You move all the people and parcels to all of the places. You move all of the deployers and all of the ammo. I gotta keep you. I can't fire you. You do too much. You're responsible for too much. I had a guy once. General says to him, what do you do around here? Guy says, I drive a bus. That's all he said to the general. The general stared at him for a good 10 seconds, waiting for more. Afterwards, I went and I grabbed the kid. I grabbed the kid's NCO, and I grabbed those two, and I went to the NCOIC of the shop, and my superintendent happened to be in the same office. I said, I never want a bus driver to give the answer, what do you do around here? I drive a bus. You move people. You move people through all stages of the deployment process, making sure all of the people get to the right places on time, every time. That's what you do. I drive a bus. You're Wendell, the bus driver. No, you're not Wendell, the bus driver. You have this specific function. Without you, the entire process breaks. What do? I make sure all the people get to the right places at the right time during both the inbound and outbound deployment functions. Without me, people are standing around and nobody's going anywhere. Without me, the deployment machine breaks down. You always answer as though you're writing your LinkedIn profile. Yes, you always answer as if you're writing your LinkedIn profile. You are your best marketer. You are your best advertiser. You are your best promoter. You did the math when Bezos went up in the rocket, and to counter bad press, he gave a bunch of money to charity. Amazon could have given all the employees $100 or under $50K yearly, $500. I think that would have been smarter, maybe, but remember, giving the money to charity is a tax write-off, which is stupid. But remember, if I give you $500, it costs me more than $500 to give an employee $500. Unless I give it to him as a bonus. If I give it to him as an annual, then that $500 costs me about 535, give or take. 545. For me to give an employee a $500 a year raise costs me about $545. So another stupid thing that the way we do. But then again, fair and equal. Fair and equal. Keep it on the motto of the day. People that have been working for 30 years are expecting to get Social Security when they retire. The problem is the Social Security system is broken. The Social Security system keeps raising the minimum age because people keep living longer, because that's what happens in a civilized society. Medical breakthroughs, scientific breakthroughs, nutritional breakthroughs. If you guys remember, back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, people died young because they couldn't get the nutritional value they need. They didn't get their vitamins, their minerals, their nutrients. They were all jacked up. So now people are living longer. But the problem is that Social Security is a game of double dutch. You jumped in between the ropes 30 years ago and you've been keeping your little pitter-patter feet going and you haven't gotten tangled up in the ropes. There is no way to fix Social Security. In America, there's no way to fix Social Security unless two things happen. Number one, we write a new system. We just pick a year. 2025 is the year. Here's the new Social Security system. But number two, the U.S. government would have to take all of the money that is owed to Social Security. They would have to take all that money and put all that money back into the Social Security system, and then they would need to keep their grubby little mitts off of it. The problem is the U.S. economy, the U.S. financing, the U.S. disbursement, the U.S. government isn't set up to hold money. We have fiscal years. It's a stupid way to run a country. It's a stupid way to run a country. Even though I'm from the military and I ran this, I run my company. I ran the government spending for multiple programs for multiple years. At the end of the year, I got to have $0. At the end of the year, I got to have $0. Oh, okay. And then next year, you're going to give me a big pile of money. Well, what if you just give me next year's big pile of money and now I look at all the projects I can fund? I don't spend Paradox Gaming Network down to $0 at the end of the year. On the 31st of December, I don't spend all the money because there's no magical pile of money that comes on the 1st. I mean, thanks to Snickers yesterday and everybody else's generosity, there'll be a big check that comes in January. But the way the government, the way the military spends money is stupid. It's stupid. If you want to go back to what people have talked about, is it fair? No. Is it equal? No. And if you ever look at something and you say it's not fair and it's not equal, then the big answer comes, if it's not fair and it's not equal, why are we doing it this way? If it's not fair and it's not equal, we need to turn around and change what we're doing, because the is it fair? No. Is it equal? No. The double no means this needs to change. We don't save anything. The U.S. government doesn't save money. They expense it all. In the movie Dave wants to save some children's homes in New York. So he says, we're running an advertising campaign at $46 million a year so people feel comfortable about a previous domestic automotive purchase. And the guy's like, yes. Why in the hell is the United States government running advertising campaigns that directly help automobile manufacturers? It's so that they'll buy domestic cars. Hey, guess what? The way laissez-faire, people always think laissez-faire economics and capitalism means that the government doesn't get involved and interfere with you. It's kind of like Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek, where he didn't give the coils to a drug dealer. And he says, I can't give that to you due to the Prime Directive. And they were like, well, without him, he's like, well, the Prime Directive says I can't intervene. I was going to intervene, but I decided I wasn't going to intervene. The U.S. government shouldn't be helping private organizations. To go back to the rail strike, I'm going to need to dig into the rail strike. Rail workers are upset the way they get paid. If they miss too many days of work, then they lose their jobs, they lose their bonuses, they lose their pay, they lose their rating. It's a big, complicated system. I need to know exactly what this bill does. I know it talks about giving them 9 sick days. I think the problem is that the U.S. government should look at the rail companies and say, you're doing business the same way you've been doing business since the 1920s, but the world has changed. If you don't get involved, then the government's going to create federal railways, and we're going to start moving all the critical stuff. And since there are rail lines, we get priority. Imagine how quickly the U.S. airlines would start changing things. Imagine if the government ran military airlift between all the major hubs. Every 45 minutes, there's a plane between Chicago and St. Louis. It runs like clockwork. Boom. Get on the plane, get off the plane, get on the plane, get off the plane. Imagine how much all the airlines would pucker up at that. Oh, what? Why are you getting involved in this? I'm getting involved in it because you all suck. Guess what? We're going to start doing it. And guess what? Since in order to make sure this works right, we're going to put Air Force and Navy air traffic controllers. We're going to take that over too. The commercial industry would be like, you've destroyed us. Yeah, that's part of the problem. I am not saying that we don't have a problem in this country with capitalism. We absolutely do. Fair and equal, huge problem. But I think that a lot of times people want to jump right to the solution. I think first we need to know what fair and equal means. We need to understand what fair and equal means. Sparky was talking about a one-time bonus for those Amazon employees instead of a raise. I could get down with that. And then all those jacked up averages we use for body composition. Yeah. Fair and equal. The military will tell you that you're fat because your BMI is, 25 and above, you're fat, and 30 and above, you're obese. I've seen people that have been bodybuilders. In fact, Mr. Indiana and Mr. Illinois, bodybuilder, was a reservist. He got kicked out of the reserves back during a time when we had a waist measurement. A waist measurement. You could bypass your waist measurement if you had a BMI of 24.9 or less. If your BMI was 24.9 or less, you didn't do a tape. If you didn't have that, you did a tape, and if you were 39 and a half or more, you failed. The guy literally, not even joking you, he went to take his PT test in the morning, and he failed it. He ran about a 10-15 mile and a half. He maxed his push-ups, he maxed his sit-ups, but he had a 41-inch waist. He had a 41-inch waist, but it went up like that. He wasn't fat. He was solid. He was told that he failed his PT test. It was his third fail. He had one more chance to get his waist measurement down. He had 87 days to get his waist measurement down. Otherwise, he was going to be out of the reserves. That day, we were doing field training with wounded patients. Our chief was kind of a roly-poly, 200 pounds of bubblegum and 150 pound sack sort of guy, but he had a 39 and a half inch waist. He was one of the wounded patients. He was on a litter, and 6 small females were trying to pick up this litter. It was just a problem. He literally reaches down, grabs this 200-pound man off of the litter, gets him up on his shoulders, and fireman carries him about 400 yards at a pretty good clip. The clip was so pretty good that the airmen with the litter that were trying to finagle a litter were actually slower than the bodybuilder humping out the wounded 200-pound chewed bubblegum chief. He sat the chief down and looked at him and said, "Tell me again why I'm not fit enough to be in the Air Force. I just picked your ass up and hauled you 400 yards on my shoulder with all my gear and all your gear except your rucksack." And the chief was like, "There's nothing I can do for you." That's some unfair and unequal bullshit. What's the whole deal about China asking Apple to limit file sharing to stop protesters, and the US is cool with it because Apple is private, but they're up Twitter's ass because they're not? So here's the problem with that. You got to be careful when you address topics. China can ask Apple to do whatever China wants, right? China is not the United States. China is a sovereign nation with the largest population on the planet. China isn't a democracy. China's not a democracy. China is a communistic dictatorship that has fake faux pas elections. There is nothing wrong with the way China runs their country. I know some of you are probably shocked by that. There is nothing wrong with the way China runs their country. Why do I say that? I'm not a Chinese citizen. I don't live there. I live in one of the two major countries in the United States. Two major countries in the United States. I live in one of the two major countries in the world that doesn't teach its citizenship the 30 basic human rights. So before I, as an American, am gonna look over the Wilson fence and start telling China what they're doing wrong, I'm going to not be a hypocrite, and I'm going to look at my own country, my own society, and I'm going to say, hey, we need to fix a lot of stuff in our society before I, as an American citizen, have the audacity to start telling other countries what they need to do. Now, this brings me back to a point in American history where the Americans, we opened ourselves up to a pretty weird scenario. I am not saying Saddam Hussein was a good country leader. I'm not saying he was good anything. I don't think he was a good anything. But I do think there's a level of hypocrisy where the United States goes in and removes the sovereign leader of a nation. Where the United States goes in and removes the sovereign leader of a nation because you don't like something he did back in 1979. What a lot of people don't realize is in as recent as 2003, there was still a picture of Saddam Hussein at Lackland Air Force Base. Because where did he learn to be a pilot? We financed the Iraqi army because we wanted to get rid of Iran as a country. And then when we stopped giving Iraq support, we were shocked that the invasion ended or didn't happen. The problem is we went into a sovereign nation and removed the leader of a sovereign nation. And you're going to be like, but he allowed his brother to feed people through wood chippers. He allowed his brother to feed people to the lions. How is that any different than the war on drugs in the 80s and the 90s, where we criminalized crack 10 times as stringent as cocaine because black people were doing crack as a rock and white people were doing cocaine as a powder? It's not. It's no different. The United States is morally bankrupt as a country, as a political organization. We ask our veterans to serve in the military, to go into foreign countries, to fight wars, to bring freedoms and liberties to people that when they get out of the military, we forget they exist and we don't give them those freedoms and those rights and those liberties and those privileges. I'm against that level of hypocrisy. I don't think a single veteran should be freezing on the streets tonight. I think every veteran should be able to go to a building and say, I'm a veteran and I need a place to stay tonight. I think every veteran should be able to show up at a military organization and say, I'm a veteran. Once they validate you, they give you a barracks room. You get 3 hots and a cot until they figure out why you're not getting your VA money. I want to remind you, there is a huge problem with the VA. Okay, I'm going to type it out. The VA owes the vet money. The vet needs the money for housing. The VA can't pay a vet without a permanent address. The vet can't get the address without the money the VA owes the vet. And there you go. There's the There's the problem. There's the problem. You literally have a situation where the veteran doesn't have a permanent address, so they can't get their money, but they need their money to get the permanent address. That's bullshit. It's another one of those fair and equals. It is not fair that you ask a veteran to go and possibly die for their country to bring liberty to other people, but then when they need liberty brought to them, you say, well, you can't have your money because you don't have an address, and you don't have an address because we won't give you any money. There is something completely wrong and flawed about that. Now, as far as the U.S. government being all about Twitter, well, the U.S. government has the right to be all about Twitter because Twitter is an American company. Is some of the things that the U.S. government's up about Twitter about right? Yes. Some of it wrong? Yes. If you are a social media platform that has grown to such power and influence that people caused billions of dollars worth of damage and loss because you allowed people to fraudulently verify, and then they made statements and the stocks of companies go down, Twitter, you're culpable in that. Twitter is in fact culpable in that. Without a doubt. Zero doubts, zero anything, Twitter is culpable in that. Whether or not they should be penalized or sanctioned, that is what it is. It's the same way when the news, I want to remind people are like the freedom of the press. The press can say anything they want. No, the press can't say anything they want. If you know anything about journalism, you know that in order to have the protections of freedom of the press, you have to be acting in good faith as an agent of the press. One of the things you have to do is not engage in libel and slander and defamation of character. One of those things you have to do is you have to have responsible journalism. The problem is somewhere in the last 10 to 15, maybe 20 years, responsible journalism has gone out the window. When I was growing up, we had Dateline. We had 2020. We had 60 Minutes. We had well-researched news programs. Were they boring? They could be, right? They could be, but they were well researched. They were factual because they were changing a nation. And then I remember being in school and being watching a program called Channel 4. Was an in-school news broadcast that they showed you. Did you know Anderson Cooper managed to grow his career because he got Channel 4 to show his broadcasts, and that's how he got popular? Now Anderson Cooper is one of the most powerful political commentary voices in the world. I think that's great until he says stupid things. And when he says stupid things, when he says unresearched things, when he says things that are bordering on libel, defamation of character, slander, I think it's high time in the United States that we've done a rewrite of the Constitution. I think we need to have a constitutional convention. If you want to talk about fair and equal, we need to have a constitutional convention, and we need to put a lot of things under review. Well, freedom of the press, okay? Our Article 1 of the Constitution, freedom of the press. What does that mean? What does an agent of the press mean? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. You guys heard me say this about the riots that were up in Detroit, up in Michigan, a while back. Milwaukee, a while back. You get 10,000 people together, and then they're going to riot. Well, I think that if you get 10,000 people together, what should the local government do? The local government should send somebody out with police escort and go to the front of the protest and say, nice collection of people you have here. You've gotten our attention. Which 5 people would you like to come and speak to the mayor? What do you mean? Well, that's the whole point of your protest, isn't it? You want a redress of your grievances. Which 5 people would you like to come and have a meeting with the mayor? These 5 people. Okay, now turn around and send everybody else home. Well, we're not going to send them home. Why? Because we got to keep the movement alive. Why do you need the movement to be alive? You're getting a meeting with the mayor. We're taking you directly to City Hall. The mayor is waiting to hear what you need, to hear what you want. A couple of years ago, or this year, or last year, anybody that's been around or been watching the U.S. news and government, people are talking about defunding the police. Defunding the police is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Defund the police. Dumb shit like that. Defund the police. How about you need to not defund the police? How about you need to fix all the other problems and reduce the need for police? You got to do something else first. You can't defund the police. The police are a response. The police are a reactionary organization to ensure that the liberties of people aren't infringed upon. There's clearly a lot of infringing on people's liberties going on, which is why we need the police. We need to take the money that the police are given, and we need to increase school funding. Because the schools in America are doing such a great job, right? I want to throw good money after bad money. We already give the school systems in this country a fair and equal amount of money, and they can't seem to do anything with it. But we want to take money away from the police, and we want to give it to the schools. Schools probably going to be my topic next week. I think schools is like the next logical place to go. As we're closing up here for the day, who else? What do you guys think? What do you think? Some topics I need to start writing down in the magic book. I got the book out. School reform is one. What else? What else do we got? And it doesn't have to be American. I mean, it's going to be harder for me to do commentary on European stuff unless the Europeans help me. But what other stuff do you think I should look at or tackle or talk about? This was good for me. I liked this show. I wish the show was starting now, but unfortunately, like I said, Semper Gumby, always flexible. You're all asleep. I bored you all to tears. That's how it goes. I do appreciate everybody that came out today. We saw some decent numbers. We saw some growth. It's going to take a while for the show. I do have another scene. I mean, occasionally we'll be on this screen. We'll be over here if I want to show some stuff. It's going to be a little weird. I got to make a custom bottom bar because gonna have Twitch and YouTube. Although I don't know if I'm going to stay on Twitch and YouTube forever. Because if I were to affiliate, I wouldn't be able to do it. And then this is about to do. What happens when I do that? What happens if I do it here? Oh, that's interesting. It does it both? Oh no, it doesn't. The stream elements bot, yeah. The stream elements bot for Twitch is so slow. It might get there. It might decide. Anyway, with that said, guys, thank you for being here today. I'm going to do school reform next week. And of course, if you got stuff during the week, during the gaming shows, the point of this show is to give me a time and a place and a pulpit and a soapbox. I can talk about politics, railroad strikes, generational wealth, all that stuff without interfering with the gaming channel. I don't want to interfere with the gaming stuff that we do. I think we lost a lot of people over the years from the gaming channel because we dove into politics. I think keeping the politics on a separate show gives me what I want as a creator. It lets me talk about the politics, but not during the gaming show. Anyway, I got to get out of here. I got to get prepped to go to a business meeting. I'm going to look at this piece of property. I will let you guys know how that turns out. I am going to try to get online on the gaming channel either late tonight or tomorrow or both to do Harvestella. I do have the Ashes video from the gaming channel recorded. I just need to do the dressing up and the editing. I will see you guys next week for school reform, true fear, only comes from within.